Well, the aftermath of suicide is profoundly distressing for the families of the victims, their friends too, those left behind, we generally say. This morning, we're delving into the impact of suicide on those who are left behind. We're honored to be joined by consulting psychiatrist Dr. Earl Wright as we explore this topic this morning. Trigger warning for the folks who have had experience with this. We're going to take it easy, but we just want you to be mindful, right? That this is something that can send you to a bad place. Well, that's why we have the expert with us. Morning, Dr. Wright, how are you?
Morning. Good morning to you, listeners. Good morning.
So good to have you with us. In your own experience, in your own practice, in your own work, how prevalent have you found suicide to be? And in the last couple of years, I've heard people saying that the rates are increasing because of elements like social media. Have you found any truth to that, empirical evidence to that?
Well, our suicide rate in Jamaica compared to the world is pretty low, but we have been seeing a small increase recently. And that's a warning sign. Suicide is usually precipitated by underlying mental health problem, most of the time major depressive disorder. But there are other conditions such as psychosis can precipitate suicide. And suicide, after an individual has committed suicide, it affects the entire family and those around them. Yeah. They go into shock and they are disbelief, and it's something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, Dr. Wright, what would you say are some of the domino effects, what are some of the domino effects that the family or even just society, loved ones experience when they do discover that a loved one has, committed suicide?
Well, they're going through a period of shock because suicide is usually very unexpected. And there is disbelief is for a good while, there's a period of disbelief. And then there's sometimes anger at the individual that have committed suicide. And then many times there's a lot of blame that goes on. And then individuals around, especially if they are very close to the individuals, have a high risk for developing anxiety and depression themselves. And individuals who have been exposed to individuals around them that have committed suicide, they become at risk because of the higher risk of developing mental health problem for the suicidal ideation and suicide themselves. So it's very important that we recognize that it's not only the individual that has committed suicide. We need to pay special attention to the individuals, the family associated with them and those around them, and give them the support that is necessary. Being available to them all the time and watch for symptoms, any problems they might be having.
Go ahead, Doc.
Because one of the things that we call it complicated grieving. And that's a major problem for individuals who have been associated with suicide and are left, and survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt. Wow, complicated grief, prolonged grief, compounded grief. Let me ask you, Doc, this is the prevalent question I hear, or the prevalent concern I hear from people who have had families and friends who have death by suicide. Why didn't I see? What did I miss? And that is a huge part of the survivor's guilt that they have. Should I have paid closer attention? Did I miss a sign? What say you to folks who live with that day in, day out?
Well, they have to talk about it, because many times what they wonder about, are there signs that I could have seen? Is there anything that I could have done to divert this individual or help this individual during the time that they were suffering, that they reach to the point that they give up? And many times it's getting them through the grieving period on the loss. But as a community as a whole, what individuals need to be aware of is the signs of that they should look for before. When an individual tells you that don't want to live anymore, they want to die, they are planning to kill themselves, even though they might tell you it's a joke, you must take it very seriously. And if an individual start giving away things, they start talking about not being here. They say that they are a bother to individuals. They might be, people would be better off without them. Okay. And then the signs of withdrawal and risk-taking behaviors and saying goodbye to individuals who they haven't been around for a long time. And all these are things that one should take seriously. And if an individual you see start hoarding pills or doing things strange, mood swings, then that ought to be taken seriously and get to the doctor and get some mental health professionals to do an evaluation. But I know the grief that comes off afterward, but that's helping the individual to go through the grieving process, especially the complicated grieving process. And many times what's needed is a grief counseling or a support group that's needed to help individuals through this difficult time.
Well, Doc, it's interesting that you mentioned some signs. I've heard of instances where there are persons who show no sign at all.
Or some people who are very happy.
Yes, they're happy. They buy their favorite things, and they enjoy their favorite snack and that kind of thing. And then bam, the tragedy strikes. But how can we as a community assist those who have lost loved ones to suicide? I know you mentioned the grief counseling, but are there any additional ways that persons can assist?
Yes, the individuals being around them, giving them support, being available to the individuals, the family, etc., sitting with them. One of the things that's very important is non-judgmental listening.
Yes.
Not talking to the person, but just being available to listen to what they have to say. Because a lot of times talking about the problems help them, if they are ready, to get it off their chest and heal. And also gonna be important to give the person time, because different people are gonna be heal at different rates. So you need to accept the person where they are and help them, give them the support, visit them. And this is also a long term. Sometimes after a week or two, everybody disappeared.
Yes.
It's gonna be important to be there for them, especially at times of anniversary, because sometimes after a loss, on that particular day, the individual feel very depressed for some reason. Sometimes they don't even know. And then they look at the calendar and they find out that it's the anniversary of a suicide or a death. So being around them for a long term, especially having support groups that they can express themselves and talk about what they are experiencing on a long-term basis. And coming back to the event, many people the change of behavior, where an individual that's been depressed, and all of a sudden you see them get very happy. You need to take do something about that. They change the flight into happiness when a person has been depressed for a time.
They like to say that people who are going to kill themselves don't generally tell you Listen to what Doc is saying. If you hear somebody saying that over and over, it is the reddest of flags. Pay very close attention. Also, the other signs he mentioned. But the key takeaway, folks, is that this is a significant life event or death event, depending on how you look at it. Do not be afraid to get the help that you need, because you can't process this one by yourself. And also allow yourself the time to grieve through it, as Doc is saying. There is no timetable, there is no quick fix, there's no sprint. We have to wrap it up, Doc. Final thoughts from you.
Asking an individual if they're thinking about killing themselves doesn't make them kill themselves. They find a relief in talking about it, so it's important to ask about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Wright, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Of course, persons needing help can reach out to the Ministry of Health and Wellness at its 24-hour mental health and suicide prevention helpline at 888-NEW-LIFE. That is 888-639-5433. Thank you so much, consulting psychiatrist Dr. Earl Wright.
Very important discussion, even if difficult to have. We hope you gained something from it. Coming up, building Jamaica's future through scholarships. That's after this.